Welcome to the Butterfly Tumblr Radio channel. Are you ready to start today's story? Let's get started. Imagine your life turned completely upside down in a single day. Betrayed by your loved one, your children taken away. And even your home no longer yours. This is not a movie plot, this is my story. Betrayed by those closest to me. Bound by the ruthless law, I, Ethan Gray, am standing on the brink of losing everything. But this is just the beginning. The bugle for counterattack has just sounded. A sudden upheaval. How does an ordinary father fight against conspiracy and lies to protect his family? Follow me to delve into the cost of deceit and uncover the hidden truth behind it all. A public reckoning today was just like any other day until 5:30 p.m. I woke up at 7:00 a.m. Helped the kids get ready for school. And made them breakfast and packed their lunches. Jessica, who was tired from her late-night tennis game, was woken up so she could make sure Max and Lily caught the school bus on time. I said goodbye to my kids and went to work at 8. I'm in charge of a group that takes care of the town's public projects. I finished work around 5:00 like usual. I needed cash for the weekend. So I went to an ATM. It took my card but didn't give me any money. There was no warning or message, it just kept my card. Looking back, it might have been a bit silly to try getting cash with my credit card. I wanted to buy something nice for Maddie's birthday on Sunday. Unfortunately, the machine kept my card since the bank was closed. I went back home and saw that Jessica's car was not in the driveway. I quickly ran to the front door worried that she had left the children alone at home once more. I had told her how much I disliked that. To prevent it from happening again, I asked her to call me if she had plans after school so I could come back earlier. While I was about to open the door, I heard someone call out, "Mr. Ethan Gray." I turned around and replied yes. A man in his 40s gave me a yellow envelope labeled slug gun and pike and said, "You've been served," before leaving feeling puzzled. I went inside the house. It felt strangely empty. As soon as I stepped in 2 minutes later, I found out that my family members were gone, along with their clothes and things. There was no explanation. Just a yellow envelope left behind sitting at the table. I tore it open and found the first paper was about a divorce. I saw the word "sign here" on sticky labels. Without reading it, I moved on to the next document. This one was a bit more confusing to me. I found out that I had 2 months to leave my house before it was sold. What a surprise. The third paper was confusing too. It turns out a man named Richard Smith wanted to adopt my children. Seriously, what is happening? The title of the final paper was clear and easy to understand. The court order told me to stay at least 200 meters away from my wife, kids and Mr. Richard Smith's house on 12 Riverview Drive. I was shocked. The huge impact of this order made me feel like my whole world was falling apart. But there was one thing I didn't realize back then: the problem was too big for me to understand all at once. My mind tried to protect me from getting too upset at first. I couldn't think clearly. But then I began to realize what had happened. My wife left me for someone I didn't know. She took our kids and wanted me to let the new guy adopt them. She closed our shared bank accounts and planned to sell our house to get the money. Her accomplice was Richard Smith, who lived at 12 Riverview Drive. I felt even worse because of how clueless I had been. Jessica must have been planning this for a while. And I didn't notice a thing. I realized Jessica wasn't very intelligent. So I must have been foolish. I thought back on things that might have hinted at this. Jessica had been withdrawn around 6 months ago. But after I mentioned it, she seemed to snap out of it. Our intimate life, which had dwindled, suddenly improved a lot. In reality, she had returned more confident and wild than before. The reserved wife I knew was gone, replaced by a daring, passionate lover. I didn't expect. Memories of our recent bedroom encounters brought a smile to my face. I wondered if she had tried these new things with Mr. Smith before, but no, that wasn't like Jessica. The thought chilled me to the bone. She always wanted to do those things but couldn't because of her strict upbringing. Sadly, she lost respect for me 6 months ago. And that's the sad part. The funny part is, now I'm experiencing a different side of her, Jessica, who enjoys exploring different things in bed. Smith was definitely feeling confined by Jessica's missionary-only attitude. Wait, Dave. You'll want to keep your sense of humor for what's about to happen, I thought. I was still stunned as I figured out what to do next. It might seem unexpected to those unfamiliar with my recent psychological evaluation. My boss had a new idea to have all his top workers analyzed. I felt good when the report said Mr. Gray doesn't always follow the rules. It meant I was like a cowboy PI, prioritizing results and using rules as a general guide to get things done. After the report at my annual review, my boss gave me a big compliment. He told me that whenever there's a tough task at work, he always turns to me. He even writes in his diary about how he believes I will handle it and how quickly I will finish it. I'm glad to admit I've always been wrong. The man then gave me the best score, and we both chuckled. But it didn't matter because I couldn't move any higher with my qualifications. I couldn't finish my engineering studies because I had to take care of my wife and kids before moving on to a better job. After 30 minutes I parked near 12 Riverview Drive, which wasn't very far. Jessica's car was there, but no one seemed to be around in our town. There was a fancy neighborhood where Smith lived in a large house like the others. The name sounded familiar. Could he be the guy from TV ads? He was known for appearing in his own ads for the town superstore, which changed often if I remembered correctly. He had gained control of it by force a couple of years ago. If my memory was accurate, then I was in trouble. This man was very wealthy. My thoughts were interrupted when the front door opened, and a man came out and drove off in his car. I realized it was the same man who had helped me just a little while ago. The yellow envelope made me curious, so I opened it and checked out the divorce papers inside. It seemed like Jessica was asking for everything: the house, cars, money, and even support for the kids. She wanted it all. I also saw that she didn't want me to see the kids at all. I knew Jessica was someone who liked to win. She always wanted to win and defeat her opponents. The way she acted in that petition was typical of Jessica. I was thinking about this when the door opened again. 30 minutes later, a well-dressed woman in her early 40s was pushed onto the top step. She watched as a big suitcase was placed next to her by a man in his 50s. He then went back inside and closed the door. Holding a yellow envelope, she recognized it. She stood still for a while, eventually wheeling the suitcase towards the gate and began walking towards me. Her expression matched the way I was feeling inside, completely baffled. As she got closer to my car, I walked in front of her. She stopped a short distance away, looking at me with teary eyes, holding her envelope and dragging her suitcase. She seemed lost. Showing her my envelope, I said same. She glanced at mine, then at hers, and started crying uncontrollably. She stood still as I put her suitcase in my car and opened the door for her. I drove away, taking some turns to make sure we weren't being followed. Strangely, knowing she was in trouble made me feel protective and calmed my mind a bit. Her eyes, red from crying, were still beautiful. Taking a deep breath, I decided to start the conversation. Hi, I'm Dave. I think my wife may know your husband. She slowly turned to me, managing a small smile despite her sadness. I noticed a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I'm Emma. She said, is your wife Jessica? I confirmed her question with a nod. I caught them together last month. We were figuring things out, or so I thought. Then tonight she started crying once more. I waited for her to calm down. The fact that Jessica had completely betrayed me didn't surprise me as much as I thought it would. Can I take you home or anywhere else? Who do you have, family or friends? I asked. I don't have family here. And Richard made my friends stay away from me. She replied, are you hungry? She shook her head. I looked in my wallet. I had less than 50. I took Emma to an affordable restaurant I knew, and we went inside. In short, we shared our life stories. I was 32 years old when I got married during my second year in university. The next year, we faced a situation where condoms failed to work properly. My wife Jessica decided against having an abortion, and I agreed to leave school to support our new family. Jessica didn't have a job, but I believed we had a strong marriage. I was a bit frustrated by my wife's laziness but understood it. In today's self-centered society, what really bothered me was that Jessica seemed like a devoted mom in front of others. Yet at home, she was a bit indifferent and focused on herself. I decided to stop bringing up this difficult topic. I, on the other hand, always showed love to my children, whether we were in public or at home. After my parents passed away and being the only child, my family was everything to me. Emma, who was 41, had a mom who left her and her dad died from stress. She married Richard Smith, who was much older, and they didn't have any kids. Richard refused to take a fertility test, blaming Emma and mentioning his successful siblings. Emma's inheritance had been used to expand Richard's business. I advised Emma to check her cards at the ATM near the restaurant. It was clear the attackers had carefully planned and executed the theft. At the moment, we felt lost and unsure of what to do next. Looking back, focusing on someone else's issues was actually comforting during this tough time. Emma wasn't ready to think about what comes next, so I suggested she stay in my large, now lonely house until she figured things out. I made it clear that I was just trying to be kind by offering her a place to stay. I didn't have any secret intentions. We went back home, and I assisted her in getting comfortable in the guest room. Later we drank some wine together. When I expressed my fear of not being able to spend enough time with my kids, she comforted me by holding my hand. She even cried, sympathizing with the pain caused by my upbringing. When we talked about our common issue, it felt like a typical counseling session. After finishing a bottle of wine, we came to some helpful realizations. Their actions seemed aimed at keeping us at a disadvantage and unable to afford our legal representation. Jessica was clearly focused on winning like always. Emma didn't want to split everything equally after our divorce, so we couldn't end things amicably. She seemed like a kind person who could support us emotionally. Going to our own rooms, we found comfort in the fact that we had each other. The following day, we focused on keeping each other's spirits up to avoid feeling too overwhelmed by our new situation. Whenever she seemed down, I would share funny stories to make her feel better. And when I started feeling low, she managed to make me laugh. Despite being beautiful, she was surprisingly shy, which added to her mysterious charm. We gathered all our money since we had no other income. By using what was in our kitchen and being careful with what we bought, we figured we could eat for a few weeks. Shopping on a tight budget was actually enjoyable for us. It was a big change for Emma, who had been living a very comfortable life since marrying Mr. Smith. I chatted about our future plans, but we changed the subject when it got upset. Setting Saturday evening, we watched a movie together. The next day, Emma was still sleeping when I got unexpected visitors, John and Beth, Jessica's family. I offered them coffee, and we had a nice chat. Beth and I always got along, and I had a feeling she liked me. For a few years now, Emma had been alone after her husband left her for his secretary. One morning, she came into the kitchen in her robe just as the coffee was being made. Quickly she said sorry and left, feeling a bit shy about her outfit. John looked at me with a raised eyebrow and a cold expression. "Dad, that's the wife of the man your daughter is living with. He said he kicked her out last Friday. The same day I met her. I invited her to stay with me since she had nowhere else. Your child is causing harm to more than just me." I replied, "I apologize, Dave." Jessica's mom wanted to join, but she felt too embarrassed. "We are aware of Jessica's actions towards you, and I want you to know that I am very upset with her. I almost told her to leave us, but you know how it is with the grandchildren and everything." I said, "I get it, Dad. Thank you for sharing your feelings. I don't get why she's doing all this. I know she's trying to come out on top by taking all the money and wanting the house. But I just don't understand her motives. I expressed to my father, who seemed surprised by what I was telling him. His wide-eyed expression indicated that he was hearing about the situation for the first time. So she really took it all, he asked, seeking clarification. All of my bank accounts have been closed. I have no money. She has given me papers to leave the house and a paper saying I can't see my kids. I explained. John looked very shocked when he heard this. He couldn't look at me. I feel bad for you, Dave. She's very mean. But I can help you with your question yesterday. She told her mom and me why she wanted to leave. In short, money. She believes you have reached your highest point. And she desires more. She believes being with a wealthy man will provide her with what she desires. He is older than 50. And the way she talks about him indicates she doesn't truly like him. If I were him, I would be cautious. I think she'll marry him but then leave him to get all his money. I don't know how to raise someone like her, he said. Dad, that's ridiculous. I had to leave college because she chose to keep her first baby. If I had continued, I would be halfway up a tall tree, not at the top of a small one. Jayan simply shrugged in response. I said, why did you bring the kids, Dad? We both know she isn't the motherly type. Why not just take the money and leave me with my kids? Just, I'm not sure, son, he replied. Beth appeared surprised at her father's response but remained silent, clearly embarrassed. John apologized and left after shaking my hand. I asked him to give my daughter a birthday hug from me. I said Beth hugged me and said, I'll be back in an hour. It was all very interesting. Emma and I were having breakfast when two friends of Jessica and me arrived. They had seen Jessica with an older man at a restaurant and were curious. I shared my perspective and Emma shared her story. They were upset by Jessica's behavior. And they were confused about why she left with the children. It seems they saw Jessica's fake nice behavior when others were around. We had just finished sharing the story when Jessica's friend arrived. We retold the story to include her. And she was shocked like everyone else. Before we could finish, Beth returned. She took me aside and gave me an envelope. Here's 1,000, Dave. Consider it a loan to make up for my bad behavior. Beth said, no, please take this, I said firmly. Feeling proud, I struggled to accept the envelope. But I was really in need. I finally took it, expressing my gratitude to her. I must also tell you that Dad didn't tell you the whole truth. Jessica visited yesterday and left the kids with us. She revealed almost everything to us. I managed to get the rest of the information from her later on. I need to warn you, Dave. She's involved in a very tricky situation. Wanted the money and the house. He planned to use the money to persuade you to agree to the divorce and let him adopt your kids. He doesn't have children of his own and hopes to have someone to inherit his wealth. Your ex-wife has convinced him that she wants to have a child with him after your divorce. After this, he will leave a lasting impact. And she will go back to her usual way of living. If you are patient, Dave, I believe she will stop caring about Jimmy and Lily and give them back to you. I looked at Beth in disbelief. But her words did make sense. Even if they seemed cold and heartless. He had a young wife who was very attractive. So I understood why he might be interested in Jessica. Even though she wasn't exceptional. The idea of having a wife who could easily have children was probably appealing to him. But I couldn't believe Beth's final thoughts. Jessica had experienced serious health issues during both of her pregnancies. When she had her second baby by C-section, she also decided to have surgery to remove her uterus at the same time. She hadn't told her family or her new boyfriend that. Along with her other behavior, showed me how sneaky my wife had become. How did Jessica seem when she talked to you, Beth? If you're wondering how she feels about hurting you, Dave, she looked guilty. She tried to hide it. But I could tell it was really affecting her. She understands she's hurting a kind man. But that won't change her behavior. Why are you helping me, Beth? It's the right thing. Dave, my sister used to bully me when we were kids. What she's doing to you is just not right. It upsets me. I felt abandoned before. So I know what you're going through. You helped me when I made a mistake, not Jessica. Now I want to help you, Dave. I care about you and can't stand to see you treated badly. Thanks, Beth. I'm not sure what to say. I can't make any promises, don't worry. I'm not looking to date you, that would be too strange. Also, I've been dating someone for a month. And it's going well. I'm glad for you, Beth. You've always been my favorite family member. I hope this relationship lasts. Thank you, Dave. I promise to support you in any way I can. Consider me your special helper. After our embrace, Beth left and I went back to Emma and our friends. By the end of the day, we had told 3 more friends about what happened over the phone. Their kind words and understanding really helped us feel better. After we made dinner together, we talked about what might happen next. But before we started, I took $400 from Beth's savings and gave $200 to Emma. I then showed her where I was keeping the rest in a cookie jar. Beth gave me some money that will help me until I get paid again. I told Emma. I continued. What do you think about what we should do? My top priority is taking care of our kids. I can't leave them with those dishonest people. We need to figure out how to support them. Which means getting the money. I'm not sure about getting back at them. But I can't stand the idea of letting them get away with it. What do you think, Emma? I asked. Emma's expression turned serious. If he had just talked to me about getting a divorce and dividing our things fairly, I would have been okay, but now I feel embarrassed. I really want to see him suffer, she said firmly. I made sure to nod in agreement to show her that I was on the same page. Okay, we know what we want. Let's figure out how to make it happen. We spent the next few hours brainstorming ideas on how to raise money to hire lawyers, considering various options before discarding them. There was no happiness in our conversations. We followed the rules and talked about fair ways to succeed. But it didn't help us progress, feeling stuck. I turned to Emma and requested details about money. They had arrived in town 2 years back and had spent all their savings on a house and a store. Later on, he borrowed $2.5 million to grow his business using his store, house and boat as collateral. This seemed like a possible weak spot we could exploit if we put pressure on his business. We might have a chance to negotiate better terms for me to see my children. I said the money didn't matter much to me, but my kids meant the world. Emma wanted to ruin the guy's business completely, but I felt uneasy about harming someone's source of income, even if he was a bad person. We stayed up very late on Sunday. The next day at work, I explained the situation to my boss. He gave me some help by allowing me to take time off and giving me an advance on my vacation days. I struggled to focus on my usual tasks all day long. I longed for my kids in the afternoon. I hung out with my colleagues from the government's finance and legal departments. Let me introduce you to them. Some people don't think highly of us who work in local government. It's known to be a secure place to work, but the pay isn't great. We stick together like a group of friends, making sure we take care of each other. For instance, when there was leftover road material while I was supervising construction, it was useful for our driveways, especially since none of us had gravel ones. By the afternoon's end, I had gained insight into business finances and legal boundaries. Back at home, Emma and I chatted about our day. She made dinner after job hunting since she used to work as a PA. As we relaxed after tidying up, a phone call, an unexpected visitor, altered my life at 7:30 p.m. The phone rang and it was Maddie. Daddy, where are you? Her voice filled my ears. I'm here at home, sweetheart, I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. I don't like it here. Daddy, please, she said suddenly. Jessica's voice interrupted line. Who are you talking to? And the call ended. Emma noticed the worry on my face and asked who had called. It was Lily, I said, making my way to the door. Emma followed me, trying to stop me with her being 52 and me being 61. It was quite a mismatch. Stop, Dave, that's what they are hoping for. They want you to get in trouble for breaking the rules. Please don't, she said. Her words made me pause. Instead of leaving, I decided to go upstairs to my room and have some time alone to sort out my feelings. I don't know how much time passed. But then I heard a gentle knock on the door. Emma entered holding 3 children's books. "Can you read me a story?" she asked. I looked at her. Then at the books without a word. I moved over to make space for her to lie down beside me. I picked the book that Lily liked the most and started reading. When I finished, I felt peaceful once more. I kissed Emma's forehead like I always did with Lily. And she smiled back at me lately. I've been avoiding thinking too much about my kids. The idea of them not being with me or living in separate homes was too overwhelming. Suddenly the doorbell rang. I was surprised to see Amelia, no Sophie, standing at the door. She was Jessica's closest friend. And I had always had a good relationship with her. I welcomed her inside and introduced her to Emma. Amelia seemed shy and avoided looking directly at us during our conversation. She expressed her apologies to me, explaining that Jessica had confided in her about her plans in advance, which caused her to pull away from our friendship over the past 5 months. She asked me not to share about her secret relationship. I tried to convince her otherwise. But she can be stubborn. I knew she was planning to end the marriage and possibly fight for custody of the children. I said as I watched her. I could tell she was feeling guilty about her actions. When I saw her, I thought she was the enemy. And I wasn't going to give her any sympathy. But then I realized she could be a valuable source of information. Guilt can motivate people to do the right thing. I just needed to nudge her in the right direction. "It's all right, Amelia," I said. "I understand how difficult that situation must have been for you." "Thank you, Dave. You're aware that she closed our accounts and left me with no money." "Right, yes, she was talking about it," I said, trying to act tough. "Amelia believes that she feels really bad about her actions towards you." She finally looked directly at me and said, "Dave, I never believed what she said about you hurting the kids. I've seen how you and she treat Max and Lily. And I know you wouldn't do that." I was shocked and asked, "What do you mean?" She informed. "Child services were told by Jessica that you were hurting the children, although they couldn't take legal action due to lack of proof. The accusations led to a restraining order." Learning this information left me feeling stunned. She was lying. I was a much better parent than she was, I thought. My visitors watched my face closely as I showed a range of emotions. I could only focus on one feeling: intense hatred. After calming down, I was certain of my next move. In a fair fight against an opponent playing dirty, I understood I needed to do the same. I was prepared to fight with all tactics, no matter how cunning. I needed to improve my imagination. "I can't talk for a while," I said. "That woman will do anything to win." "I never hurt my kids, I can tell by your expression." Dave, Amelia said. It didn't sound true when she said that. "Most dads I know go out with friends to bars or fishing. I see how much time you spend with your children. I know you care about them deeply and would do anything to protect them." "You bet I would," I replied. "My kids mean everything to me." "It's clear what she's up to, isn't it, Amelia? We've learned from someone else that she plans to use our money and home to try to take full custody of the kids. She asked Emma's husband to adopt the children, promising to have one with him as well. He really wants a child of his own. I think she will wait to have a baby with him until they get married so the child is born after their wedding. But she can't have more kids, Dave, I know you know. But Mike Sucker Smith doesn't. Once he figures it out, she might have already claimed half of our small house and money for his wealth. The harm to us and the children means nothing to Jessica. She just doesn't care, yes. You who lies about their husband hurting their own children to their best friend," I said, seeing Amelia realize the harsh reality. Her so-called friend was not a good person. She looked ashamed and left in a hurry. I went upstairs to be alone and feel my emotions. But Emma stopped me and gave me a hug. We didn't speak, just found comfort in each other's presence. Both of us were going through hard times, looking for some peace after a while. I expressed my gratitude and we went to bed. I'm not sure if Emma managed to sleep well, but I had a hard time getting much rest. I was upset by Jessica's actions, which clashed with the hurt I was feeling from Lily's call. I think I fell asleep around 4:00 a.m. after figuring out a plan that made me feel better. The next moment, Emma woke me up by opening the curtains. "Good morning, breakfast is waiting," Emma said. I got ready and went downstairs after taking a shower. Even though it was still early, I called my boss to ask for a day off. He agreed without any issue. Emma gazed at me from the kitchen table. "Emma, how much fun are you up for today?" I asked. "Why, Ethan? I didn't realize you were interested." She playfully tousled her hair and smiled. I couldn't help but grin back. "What a sassy lady you are. How far are you willing to go in this fight?" "I'm open to anything. What's your plan?" "Just some thoughts about wrecking your husband's business, taking down my wife's supporters, and ruining all her plans, leaving them both devastated." "That sounds like a solid beginning. I agree with you on that point." We shared our thoughts later. Emma went online to look up libel and slander laws, and I called Jessica's mother. She was surprised to hear that Jessica had involved children's services without her knowledge. Then I called Beth and told her what had happened. She wanted to disown her sister immediately, but I persuaded her to stay calm and help us secretly. After making my phone calls, Emma had gathered information, and we discussed what we found. After spending time together in the workshop, we made 2 signs soon after. Emma and I were sitting in chairs near the front of Richard Gray's business. I had found out that the building was rented from the city, so we were not doing anything wrong by being there. Our chairs were clearly visible but did not get in the way of customers coming in. I had a big sign that said, "Chat with me about the store owner who took my wife and kids." Emma's sign said, "Discuss the morals of my husband." It was clear Emma got more attention than me because she looked nicer. A trend started to show when I was by myself. Some folks hesitated to chat, but once one person approached me, others followed suit. Their curiosity outweighed their shyness. I shared the story's details with them straightforwardly. Emma's investigation proved what we believed all along: it's legal in our country to speak the truth. If we told the truth, we wouldn't get in trouble for saying bad things about others. Thankfully, many people we spoke with chose to shop at different stores that day. People were upset by what Jessica and did. The men were upset by what I said, while the women were upset by Emma's story. Even though it didn't really impact our business, our plan was moving forward. We had some important guests visit us during quieter times. Right before lunch, the store manager warned us about calling the police. Emma videoed me as I suggested, giving him the non-emergency police number. The police arrived just after lunch, and after talking with their supervisors, they asked us to move our chairs back a bit to make it easier for people to walk through. Our confidence in the plan grew when a reporter from the nearby radio station approached us around 4:00 p.m. A small group had gathered as Emma and I shared our stories. The listeners were particularly interested in my account of being accused of harming my children. It's unusual for someone accused of such a serious offense to talk openly about it. They left after agreeing to only share the truth we had told them. We said goodbye to the manager as he locked up for the night, looking forward to seeing him the next morning. We were thrilled to see our story on the local news that evening. As expected, we greeted him the next morning soon after. 2 security guards in uniforms arrived and stood between us and anyone who might want to talk to us. I decided to call the police when they came. They spoke to the manager, probably about how he was stopping us from speaking freely. I treated them to coffee from the van that was there for the growing crowd. We were quite popular that day. Emma looked like a perfect betrayed wife, boosting our appeal. She was really good at acting and had the right appearance for it. We didn't notice the 2 men in suits coming towards us. We were focused on the news crew setting up their van nearby, when I received a legal letter telling me to stop what I was doing or get sued for $330,000 a day. Everything was recorded on camera. The people in charge quickly left. So we spoke to the reporter about our personal story. We just shared the truth and asked them not to add anything extra to it. I showed off the paper with the name Slug and Pike across the top. After a good day we left when the store closed. Some people stayed for more fun but then changed their minds about staying. We hurried home to see the news on TV. I playfully told Emma when she should get a talent agent. It was painful when our story was shown on TV. A camera crew was outside the cheetah's house. I felt terrible when I saw my confused children being led away after school. That night I read Emma a different story. We got about 10 phone calls every day from people upset about what Jessica did. I thanked them and advised them to show their feelings by deciding whether to keep being friends with Jessica. It seemed like Jessica was feeling very lonely. Later that night at 9:30 p.m., Amelia knocked on my door without saying anything. She hugged me tightly. Then she gave me a memory stick. Tears flowing down her face before leaving quickly. Curious, I brought it inside. And Emma and I connected it to the computer. It was a shocking recording of Amelia confronting Jessica about lying to herself and child services. Jessica ended up confessing and trying to explain herself. But Amelia eventually walked out of their friendship for good. Our excitement dipped when we found out the tape was recorded illegally. So its value was low. We thought about sending it to the media anonymously. But that could harm Amelia. Our decision to be mean had limits the next day. Reginald Pike, a lawyer, came to serve us with lawsuits. He wanted us both together but we didn't agree. One of us had to record everything. We were being sued for a lot of money. Even though they knew we had no money, it was a pointless situation. After the rush of customers, we returned to our quiet watch. It felt lonely because there were only a few people in the store that day. Perhaps it was because other stores were doing a lot of advertising for similar products to what Mr. Smith sells. It seemed like the competition saw an opportunity to gain more customers by taking advantage of his situation. We were surrounded by excitement as we recorded videos of ourselves and our group of fans. Every time a truck showed up, we made sure to film its arrival, focusing on capturing clear shots of the logo on the side. We hoped that by doing so, the company responsible might feel pressured to stop supplying us. By 2:00 p.m., 2 anxious workers emerged from the store during a meeting. They were told they might lose their jobs. Emma interviewed me to help others find new jobs. The news van returned at 3:30 p.m. with 3 men in suits but no ties. This time on camera. They shared that they were lawyers who felt compelled to help us after hearing our story. They offered to support us in our divorces for free. It turned out they were offering their services pro bono. After the cameras turned off, their leader, Brian Coulson, revealed he used to work for Pike in Sluggan but had a falling out with them. A lawyer who feels angry can be very determined. We asked them to meet Emma at her workplace, the coffee shop nearby. They were waiting there when I finished work and went to meet them. After paying for 15 cups of coffee, we left with the signed paperwork to hire them for our divorces and custody fight over my child. Coulson became excited when we mentioned Amelia's recording. But we didn't give him a copy. He might be like other lawyers who only care about rules when it's convenient. Our story was now only shown on the news every other night in a small part about what the public might care about. Brian reminded me of anyone. It was Aurora, always sticking close to the big fish, benefiting from the protection and scraps it provides. It was a mutual relationship with both parties gaining something valuable. Coulson thought he was like a shark. But I didn't mind. In the following weeks, I felt more and more homesick for my family and Emma. My butt was getting numb from sitting so long. Coulson made sure the media knew about our request for half of our money back, to cancel my order to leave my place, and for Jessica to let me see my kids. The media was also interested in our sudden fame. Australians tend to root for those facing challenges. And the state news reporter seemed to like Emma too, which was good for us. Perhaps because of the big case. We got our hearings moved to the following Monday. I was scheduled to go first. with Emma right after me. As we got ready during the later part of the week, I realized Mr. Coulson wasn't playing fair either, which was just one of the things I liked about him. We avoided going near the shop on Thursday, but when we heard customers were coming back, we watched again on Friday. And I'm really happy we did at 9:00 a.m. on Friday. Mr. Smith had arrived in the parking lot. He had the highway patrol behind him with their lights on. He was driving a fancy MC. And maybe having custom license plates wasn't a good idea after all. The police took about 6 minutes to find a problem with them as they left the parking lot. And they waved at me cheerfully, handing me a ticket. Emma recorded a video of me, and I did the same for her as Mr. Smith entered his business through the front entrance. We needed to show that he was the one who started any contact and broke our rules. After an hour, Emma showed us 2 more men in suits getting out of a car with a local bank's logo. They went into the store, and Emma came over and asked, "Is it the 24th today?" I nodded yes all day. Then she said, "Can you believe someone missed their loan payment yesterday?" I chuckled. We finished work early. I had just received my holiday pay in my new bank account, so we decided to celebrate a bit. Instead of watching TV like we always do, we went to see a movie that weekend. I had trouble sleeping with the court hearing approaching on Monday. I felt really anxious about what might happen to my family. However, on Saturday, we had some surprising guests drop by. Emma's longtime friend got in touch after seeing the news about us. Later in the day, Jessica's parents and sister also showed up at our place. I quickly went to buy some food, and we ended up having a spontaneous barbecue together. While I was away, Emma kept everyone happy. She was a great host. I thought about why our visitors were here. I believe that Jessica's parents now understood everything and knew I was right. They probably thought I would eventually win and wanted to keep seeing their grandkids. Everyone enjoyed their time. Beth pulled me aside and asked, "How's your back, Dave?" I replied, "It's okay." She inquired further. "No sudden strong pain? Like a pretend knife stabbing you?" I asked. "Is your sister upset?" Beth explained. "She expected you to beg and plead by now. Your demonstration at the store surprised them. They are very upset. Jessica is angry and pointing fingers at you. My sister acts innocent. Our parents are not talking to her. And Amelia is not friends with her anymore. Jessica says she and her boyfriend are scared to go to restaurants. Others have talked about it even at the country club." "You're doing great, man," I said. "That's unfortunate. But how are the kids holding up?" "They are okay. They are feeling a bit down and lost. As expected. I visit them every couple of days to keep them company. Look, I have some pictures here." She showed me her camera and I looked at the photos. It made me feel emotional. Only one photo showed my daughter Lily smiling, but it seemed like she was trying too hard. I thanked Beth a lot for her help and went back to the other guests. As she walked out of the room, she took some keys from her pocket and accidentally dropped them on the floor. Among the dropped keys were a Mercedes key, your wife's car keys, and a spare house key. What a mistake I made. We smiled once more and returned to reality. I woke up on Sunday morning to the sound of someone calling out, "Hey lazy one, it's your time to cook breakfast," from the room nearby. I cooked breakfast and pretended to be a room service waiter, delivering the food with a towel around my waist and another draped over my arm. On the 3rd Monday of my vacation, Emma took me to the family court at 10:00 a.m. That's when I saw Mick the ex for the first time. As Emma reacted negatively when he entered. When he turned 50, he was overweight and losing his hair. I found out that he was slim when he charmed her 15 years earlier. Sluggan and Pike, not experts in family court matters, had sent a colleague. This person was a friend of Mr. Coulson's but still worked hard for their client. Coulson shared my financial information first, and then the other side replied. Their plan was for Jessica to use our resources to help take care of our children. After Coulson submitted my request for shared custody, He attempted to have the children speak with the child welfare services to share their thoughts. However, the other party found a legal way to stop this from happening. Later, Jessica's partner spoke to her, and they both took a brief break. After a quick discussion, he came up to me. "Your wife wants you to know that if you don't stop, she will talk about the abuse she's accused you of towards her and the children. She said she'd give up the house and money if you give her custody of the kids." I glanced at Jessica's self-satisfied expression, then turned to Emma seeking support. She kept changing her expression from smiling to frowning as we played this morning, depending on if we scored or not. Coulson said, "You know what I need from you, right?" I took out the tiny voice recorder from my jacket and gave it to him. Amelia gave me permission to do it as an option. Coulson went back to face his enemy, and I saw the villain's expression change when shown some edited videos. They started arguing loudly, and I caught snippets like "can't use that" and "forget media." Eventually, Coulson's adversary stormed out of the room. 10 minutes later, he came back and sat down by Jessica without speaking. The judge was woken up. The person who was thought to be bad suddenly turned good. "Excuse me, Your Honor. I have to tell you on behalf of my lawyers that we can't defend the person in this case anymore because new evidence has changed things." Jessica looked shocked and puzzled. The judge agreed with the lawyer's request to leave, and we saw him quickly gather his things and go. I leaned towards Coulson and he quietly told me, "I heard that Slug and Pike lost a lot of customers because of this. And some others said they might leave too. Seems like our video made them scared of some bad luck. No need to fret, the judge will understand everything that happened today." He golfed with my boss. Just as I was about to question what that meant for me, the judge clarified things. He postponed the case, giving Jessica a 2-week period to find a new lawyer. He mentioned that he didn't want to make a decision about the money matters until matters regarding custody were settled. But we hadn't discussed that part yet. He didn't want to cancel the restraining order because abuse accusations hadn't been addressed in court yet. This meant I had to wait 2 more weeks to see my kids. He also delayed Emma's case after leaving the court. There were no reporters around. They were looking for a scandal about lawyers leaving their clients. On that evening, Sluggan and Pike said something about conscience and doing the right thing. Many people talked about what this could mean. I didn't feel like celebrating any kind of win. I was thinking about my children who I missed a lot. Emma was also showing signs of stress. She was starting to feel bad for depending on me for support. I reassured her that I needed her emotional support to get this far. Sitting outside the store for 2 more weeks didn't seem like a good idea. It was becoming difficult to get the media's attention. I could picture myself needing to be naked by the end of the week just to get noticed by a camera. I chose to skip Tuesday and instead planned to watch how many customers they got throughout the day. Right after I had lunch, my phone rang. It was a guy named Henry who wanted to meet me at a coffee shop on the other side of town. I had Emma watch from a distance using a camera to make sure nothing bad happened. Or if it did, we would have proof. Henry ended up being the store's assistant manager. We kept things secret so no one would find out. Surprisingly, he asked me to go back to my position outside his store. It seemed like the bank was pressuring Mr. Smith. Smith decided to sell the store fast and at a low price to pay off their debt. They didn't think they'd get their money back if he stayed in charge. Henry and some other staff were talking in with the bank in secret to buy the store as employees. Hearing about this, Emma and I happily took our seats again. Later that week, we received more positive news from the lawyers. When we hired Emma, she gave us some paperwork. One of the documents was about an agreement when she gave away her inheritance. This inheritance gave her a part of the business, and she was supposed to get a monthly payment from it. Instead of getting the money, it was reinvested into the business and grew into a huge amount. We had Saturday free from work. The shop closed early that day to avoid extra pay. We asked Beth, her parents, and Emma's new friend to join us for a barbecue. Beth filled us in on the latest news at the Smith house. It seemed like things weren't going well there. Which was okay with me. Beth believed Jessica was paranoid, thinking she was a spy, and was avoiding her visits for the past week. I felt worried when I hadn't heard from my kids. Suddenly, the doorbell rang right after we had finished dinner. I answered it to find Jessica standing there. "Is it all right for you to be here?" I asked. "It seems so if I'm visiting you," she replied. I welcomed her inside, but when she saw her parents, she froze. Emma glared at her with anger before heading upstairs, where I assumed Beth had also gone. Her parents' disapproving glances made Jessica uneasy. She guided me to the kitchen. "Dave, can you ease up a bit like in the old days?" She asked. "Why, honey? Is moving on not going as planned?" "You know it isn't. I hope taking everything would make you agree to let Mick adopt the kids when I got married again. We planned to tell the poor guy that we couldn't have children and get all his money," Jessica said, staring at the table. "I was going to return to you after getting his money. Dave, I wanted to experience life as a wealthy man's wife. But you messed up. My plan is business is failing. And we can't go out because of the bad things you said about us. It's gotten so bad that when we went to a restaurant, a lady spat on me. The police have stopped me 3 times this week. If it happens one more time, I might lose my license." My dear wife, I said, had tears in her eyes. "Can you give me space to pursue my dream?" she asked. "You studied history, Jessica. Remember the saying, if we don't learn from history, we will repeat its mistakes. Your unexpected attack on me and my family was like the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor and the British colonies in Asia on December 7, 1941. Because of how the attack happened, Churchill and Roosevelt had to ask for the attackers to give up completely. If you had talked about getting a divorce respectfully before cheating, and if that person you're with now had done the same, we could have split things fairly. You could have had a good life. But you attacked like it was Pearl Harbor. So now I want everything. I won't give up my kids for money. Do you recognize me?" She suddenly realized that she had been too caught up in her plan to notice some important facts. She then understood that using emotions wouldn't work. Her expression changed to show she was back to her usual self. "Mick wants to have a serious conversation tonight. Are you able to come?" "I'm not naive. Are they going to take you away for breaking the rules?" "Well, they might come here." "No, why not?" "Because if Richard Smith gets too close to me, I will get very angry." Jessica seemed surprised by this. She had never seen me like this before. "Why? What did he do to you?" "Let me think. I was married to my wife for a long time. But she left with my money and took our children." Jessica, now looking at the table, listened as I suggested a different way to communicate with my kids. "Maybe we can use Skype," I proposed. She agreed, asking about the timing for the call. "I need to check with my partner." "Which partner?" "Emma. We decide everything together." "Why are you calling her old? Have you seen who you're with?" "How old is she?" "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. She's been a good friend when I needed one." I talked to Emma upstairs and she agreed. So why not give it a try? I made plans with Jessica to meet at 9:00 p.m. She left after giving her parents an angry look and glancing around the house sadly. I went back to the party, which ended around 8:30. I placed my laptop on the table with 2 chairs next to it. But Emma said she preferred to sit out of sight from the camera. She said she never wanted to see Richard Smith again. At 9:00 p.m. I went on Skype and saw the couple together. Emma looked fresh after a shower, sitting in her robe near the kitchen. They didn't exchange hellos. It was clear that these 2 people were competing for control, showing it through their behavior and how they carried themselves. I could tell that each had their own goals in mind. In the end, it seemed like he had a bit more control than she did. Smith believed he could negotiate. He began by saying, "Okay, Gray, let's chat." I quickly asserted myself. "Call me Mr. Gray. Or Ethan, your choice." Smith was surprised by my stern tone, glancing at Jessica with wide eyes. He realized he had lost the first point in the argument. Ethan, where is my ex-wife? Please be kind. She can hear you but doesn't want to see you. She doesn't like snakes if you can't be polite. I will end this conversation, do you get it? I scored another point and everyone could tell. Emma giggled at my mention of a snake. Jessica glanced at Mick with a disapproving expression. Listen, Ethan. If you stop watching the store and admit it was a mistake, I'll give you the house and give back some of the money. Fine, you can see the kids every other weekend. That seems fair enough, right? What about Emma? Why do you care about her? Then nudged Jessica aside. I'm okay giving her 10 of the profits once the business is making money again. I glanced at Emma. A picture can say a lot. Emma's picture showed her holding up her middle finger. I laughed. I think Emma is saying no to your offer. I said, copying her gesture for the camera. And about you visiting my kids. I've decided that neither of you are worthy of seeing them. So you can forget about it, please, Mr. Gray. Let's try to be reasonable when I have my own child. I won't care about yours anymore. You can take them back, said Jessica. I watched her response. She faced and frowned. Not in anger but in disbelief. The person looked upset, like a cat had just been revealed from a bag. Do you really expect me to leave my kids with someone who sees them as tools? Some days each week. Whether or not you consider my thoughts. It's up to you when deciding if you want to listen. Both people I was talking to began talking at the same time. Jessica was the winner of the contest. Really, Dave? Are you still upset that I left for someone else? She asked. It was obvious that they planned to record our conversation, trying to make me react violently for evidence. I remained calm despite the unpleasant situation before me. I felt something warm and soft touch my neck from behind. A voice whispered in my ear to not turn around. Then Emma kissed me on the lips before we both looked at the screen. Jessica looked angry. Many people have false beliefs when they see themselves in the mirror. But Jessica couldn't ignore the big difference between her reflection in the mirror and how she looked on the screen. It dawned on her suddenly the true meaning of trading up. You stop trying to steal my husband, she exclaimed, feeling a warm sensation on my neck. I leaned towards Emma and quietly commented. Clever move, she responded in a hushed tone. I thought he might try something, not her. But oh well, and don't glance back just like that. The warmth vanished, leaving me feeling disappointed. I fulfilled my promise by not looking back. There was no need. The small photo at the top of the screen revealed everything. Despite trying to be polite, I couldn't help being curious. The voices from the call were talking. But I was lost in my thoughts and didn't pay attention. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Emma was getting ready. So I went to answer the front door. It was my children. They hugged me tight and excitedly chatted. Max was on one side, barely reaching my chest. And Lily was holding onto my other leg. I felt overwhelmed with happiness and tried to hold back tears. It was a blissful moment. I heard bits of conversation like hurt me, and Auntie Beth gave me a camera. Emma came by. So I asked her to entertain our online friends. Then I found a peaceful spot for the kids after they relaxed. I gently asked each one about what happened. Both children had achy feet from walking all night after leaving the big house. Lily had a bruise on her wrist from Uncle Mike grabbing her. It made me so angry to hear that Max, the sweet kid, started a hunger strike with Lily 3 days ago. They learned about it in school but missed the key detail: hunger strikes only work if people know about them. Auntie Beth gave Max a camera. He used it to record his mother saying, "Get your own breakfast." Both kids were very hungry and tired. I gave them glasses of milk and told them to drink it slowly. I asked the kids to wait for Emma, who would take care of them soon. When I went back to the kitchen, I called Emma over to watch the children as I sat down at my laptop. I took a big breath. Jessica noticed something on my face and stayed quiet. But didn't and began talking. I accidentally ran him over. Jessica. Where are the children? They are upstairs sleeping. No. They are not. They just came here on their own in the dark. I took a moment to calm down before speaking again. My daughter, who is 8, says you hurt her. And she has bruises on her wrist. Both of them said they hadn't eaten in 3 days. Jessica responded calmly to the accusations. "We'll come get them soon," the other person replied. "No way, I would never leave them with you two." Jessica said firmly, "If I see you here again, I'll do whatever it takes to stop you." I smiled, happy with the threat he received. "Thanks, jerk." After making sure the conversation was saved, I went to join the others. Lily was talking excitedly about horses while sitting on Emma's lap. Max sat next to her looking at her intently. I brought out some pizza remaining from before and reminded them to eat slowly, anticipating what would happen next. I took the camera from Max and transferred the files onto the laptop. I organized the files by creating a folder and placed the camera files along with Amelia's voice recording and the Skype session file inside. I skipped ahead in the Skype video to find the part 1 was looking for. Then I made a note of the time afterwards. I took pictures of Maddie's wrists and included them in the folder too. We still had about 30 minutes before the doorbell would ring. I used that time to hug both kids until they felt better and called Beth to come over. When I finished, Emma was reading a story to the kids around 10:30 p.m. 2 women from Child Services came to my door. I welcomed them inside and offered them some drinks. They were angry and unfriendly, insisting they came to bring the kids back to their mom. I can't agree with that despite their efforts. I made them sit down, pointed out the bruises on Maddie's wrist, and had her explain how she got them. I asked Max about his hunger strike. Then I showed them a video of Jessica shouting at them and a short clip of making a rude comment about children. I questioned, "Will you really send them back to that scary place they came from in the dark?" They didn't seem at ease. "I'm sorry, but we have to follow the rules. You are being accused of hurting your kids and wife. If we leave them alone here and something happens to them, we will be in trouble. We need to report to our supervisors," I said calmly. "If you bring them back to a place where you have proof they were mistreated, not just rumors, and they get harmed again, you'll be accountable to me. Are you warning us, sir? No, just showing you what may lie ahead. Instead of involving the authorities." I proposed a different approach. I said my wife's sister was coming by, and I was okay with giving them to her if everyone agreed and promised not to take them away. The older lady left for a bit to call Jessica, then returned and said it was settled. I thanked Jessica and were pleased with that. I could picture them having a joyful celebration after tricking me into making a threat on record. Feeling sad, I said goodbye to my children and promised to help them however I could. They were happy about staying with Auntie Beth. Emma didn't speak as I left to be alone again. The following day, Emma proposed that she go to Beth's house to assist with getting the kids ready for school. I agreed. She picked up the kids from school and took them to Beth's for the rest of the week. I decided to go back to work instead of keeping watch at the store. Henry confirmed over the phone that the store was struggling financially, but his plans were still moving forward. The next Monday, we all returned to court and stood in front of the same judge. Last time, Jessica and I discussed everything except for custody, so we were ready and informed this time. Emma spoke first. Both sides talked about her and Mr. Smith's money problems, like the unpaid dividends. Mr. Smith seemed surprised and overwhelmed when this information was shared. Some people from another city were hired to represent the group of conspirators. From what I could tell, they weren't very skilled. The judge didn't decide on the exact amounts yet. He wanted financial experts to review the unpaid dividends first. But he mentioned that the money would likely be divided 65 to 35 after Emma received her share of the dividends. The judge acknowledged that he was being tough because of how mean Mr. Smith had been. Smith kept the house because Emma agreed and didn't mind. She didn't want to live there but knew it meant a lot to him. In court, their lawyers made a mistake by trying to use an illegal Skype recording. We said it was okay, even though it puzzled their lawyers. They only showed the part where I was angry at them. Jessica said I hurt her and the kids to make me look bad. I stayed quiet when she said those things later. Beth and Amelia said I was a better parent. And Jessica was shocked by the betrayal and even left the courtroom while Beth was speaking. After Beth, it was my turn to talk. Mr. Coulson guided me as I recounted the first attack when the kids came to my house at night and the bruises I sustained. He convinced me to share details about the hunger strike, highlighting that the children's mother and stepfather were unaware of it. He showed me statements from the children gathered by child services about various matters. The other side shared a Skype recording, so we decided to show them another part of it, specifically pointing out how Jessica reacted when her partner said he didn't care about my children. Coulson wanted to play a video taken by Max. The other team tried to stop it, citing evidence rules. The judge didn't like that. Hey, this isn't a criminal court, folks. I have a special job to help the children from the marriage, and I take it seriously. You can play the video, Mr. Coulson. And also let me listen to that other tape people talked about last time. I watched Jessica and looking uncomfortable as we listened to her shouting at her kids to make their own breakfast. Their reaction was overwhelming when they listened to the 10-minute recording of Jessica confessing to Amelia that she had lied to children's services about me hurting her and the kids. In the recording, she mentioned that the idea came from Richard Smith. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates. The judge maintained a steady gaze towards her as the recording played, and Jessica slumped down with her head in her arms. Richard also seemed displeased with what was revealed. I think Sluggan and Pike never explained why they left. The other lawyer didn't say anything when they were asked for a response. The judge asked me one question, which I knew was coming. Mr. Gray, can you tell us about the serious threat you made to Mrs. Gray and Mr. Smith? I heard some rumors about child support workers facing threats. I was ready for this. A man was going to get emotional with another man, but I had done my homework and was prepared. I stood up and confidently met his gaze. Yes, I can confirm that, Your Honor. You've heard the evidence like I did, that my kids were taken away to a bad and neglectful place. I've always felt that as a dad it's my job, no, my honor, to keep my kids safe. I would do anything to protect my children, just like you would for your own, Your Honor. I didn't even break a sweat when I threatened abusers to protect my freedom. I would do it again without hesitation. The judge seemed impressed for a moment. I could see he admired my actions. He nodded at me before taking a break to think. Less than an hour later he returned. I got full custody of the kids, and Jessica could only see them when I said so. Coulson seemed shocked. The judge said we had to pay our own legal fees. I got the house and most of the money once more. The judge acknowledged being tough on Jessica because of her aggressive tactics during the ambush. The journalists seemed furious, scribbling away on their notebooks. A few of them approached me after the hearing, but I was so happy that I can't recall what I told them. Emma drove the kids back home, and I gathered all their stuff from the big house. Jessica and argued while I was there. When I got home I hugged my kids tightly later. They wanted Emma to read their bedtime stories instead of me because they thought she was better. I got tired of reading their books so many times. The next night, Emma and I threw a party and invited Mr. Coulson and his team as special guests. 2 reporters came to cover the event, hopefully giving Mr. Coulson the recognition he deserves. I heard him explaining the term pro bono to one of them. Our friends, some of Emma's new friends, and even my boss came, teasing about having a famous person on his team. I raised my glass to Beth, calling her my best aunt. As the night went on, the party became quieter with only family left. I sat with Beth and her mom at the table. John was napping on the couch while Emma read a story to the children on the other couch. Then the mother-in-law brought up a challenging topic. Mom, I've been thinking about how much Jessica should see the kids. She asked. I had been thinking about this since yesterday. I'm not sure, Mom. It all depends on what Jessica wants. If she wants to see them, I won't stop her. The kids need a caring woman's influence to grow up happy and healthy. Right? My ex-mother-in-law shook her head. You can be unkind sometimes, Dave. What your children are with a woman they adore and who cares for them right in front of you. I turned around quickly, almost tipping the chair over. Emma saw 3 people looking at her, one seeming surprised. She understood right away and blushed. I got up and walked towards the sofa. I knew what I was going to say wouldn't impress anyone, but it came from the heart well. It looks like these kids need a new mom. Do you want to work here without a word? Emma stood up, embraced me, and we shared a long, heartfelt kiss. Our children squeezed between us, showing their excitement. Everything just felt perfect. After putting the kids to sleep and saying goodbye to our visitors, I carried Emma to our bedroom. Just as we reached the door, she spoke. Did you propose to me before? Yes, I did. I thought I remembered. Did I say yes? Not exactly. Why do you ask? I know I'm not as high up as an engineer, I'm just a works foreman. But what if I use my money to support you going back to school? That sounds like a good plan to me, Grandma. Who is dating who anyway? Jessica didn't reach out to me to see the kids. And they didn't mention her much because Emma kept them occupied. The bank helped sell the store to a group of managers and workers. Henry, a well-known person in town, invited me to reveal the new sign with the words under new management for the media. The store made a profit in the first week. Emma had more money than me, she only accepted cash. And her ex got the house and some money to begin anew. I heard Jessica was still with Richard from family gossip. Everything might have stayed the same if I hadn't bumped into Mr. Smith one day. He joked about wanting to get rid of my smile before his trial began. His lawyers believed that certain evidence should not have been allowed. I requested Mr. Coulson to monitor the court schedule for me. He found out that everything was paused because the couple went on a month-long cruise in the West Indies. By chance, a fax for Mr. Smith arrived while they were stopped at port. It contained instructions for Jessica Gray after a surgery 9 years ago. How was I supposed to know that the boat was in a country where hitting women is strongly frowned upon? I never questioned Emma about how all those homeless people entered the mansion and made it unlivable. I felt it was my responsibility to report any criminal activity if I found evidence of it. Right. I didn't realize that insurance companies won't cover losses if homes are left unsecured for a month. I can't remember where Beth's keys are. Did I see a destroyed Mercedes on the highway yesterday? After completing my first year of university, I suggested working part-time until I finished to care for our new baby. However, Emma didn't want to be married to someone without qualifications for too long. She was quite snobbish. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.